501. 501. Suzanne is out of town. She's a new grandmother. It's a boy. Everybody's healthy as far as I know. They got a little rain done today. They had a couple of tornadoes out there. It's kind of crazy. Oh, there's another. Anyway, most of you have the packet. If you need an extra copy, there's one up here. If you need that. We start off with an introduction of board members. And Lorraine, would you start with us? Please, thank you.
Lorraine Morris, representing Addison Central School.
Hi, Christine Macklin, representing Addison Northwest.
Sean Flynn, representing Silver Maple Construction.
Michael McGrath, Addison Northwest.
Gibson Smith, I'm the business manager.
Linda Barrett, clerk.
Dana Peterson, Director Superintendent.
Kim Farnham, the community at large member from the Mount A School Board District and the vice chairperson. Thank you.
Mark Perrin, Workforce Investment Board.
Missy Beckwith, Workforce Investment Board.
Glenn Schmidt, Adult Ed and Cooperative Education.
Kelly Mills, Dean of Students and Sustainable Agriculture Instructor.
Gretchen?
Oh. I thought it was just
Well, we have quite a few visitors, and
Okay,
feel free, go ahead.
I visit every month. I'm Gretchen Bailey. Brenda Lucci.
Hayden Thompson. Michael Davis.
Paul Orchowski, automotive instructor.
Ms. Denizak.
Susan McCormick, Gretchen Cotel, diesel instructor.
Melody Wade.
Thank you. Agenda, any questions or additions?
The only thing I had is under upcoming meetings, budget and policy is scheduled at 5 p.m. I was thinking we were meeting at 4, but.
I think that may be right. That may be a typo.
Okay.
So 4 p.m. I think we decided to move that,
Yeah.
but Patrice might have just carried it over from what last year was.
Just want people to know. I'm sure
We're meeting early.
show up for that meeting.
That's right.
Okay, and I have two additions, actually a couple. One is under action items. We have an adult ed grant that we need to accept and a bid proposal regarding that amount of money, and we can go over that in a little bit. Lynn's going to talk about it.
Sure.
Do that.
So we'll put that in right under action on donations that we have? Okay.
And then another piece, if you would like to take a look at it, is regarding the internet agreement, which is a 3-year agreement, so we do have to have an action item on that.
But that's already on the agenda anyway.
But I'm explaining why.
Oh, okay.
If it was 1 year, we'd be fine, but
right.
because it is 3 years, we have to act on that. And other than that, if anyone else has any other additions or omissions for the agenda item? Okay. We don't need to vote on that, though, do we? No. That is that. So we're good.
Well, actually, somebody has to approve the agenda, but. So take a motion.
Take a motion. Second?
Seconded.
Okay, you'll set with that one?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, thank you. In the consent agenda, minutes of July 10th, any corrections, additions, omissions? Seeing none? The accounts payable, Missy, are you in a position to?
Apparently, I have that paperwork today, although I could hand it over to Missy.
I do have the paperwork
Oh,
as
please
well.
do it.
Are we
Yes.
breaking some of that?
You're a pro.
Okay, good.
The one that you didn't do the other one.
We'll do it in harmony. It's going to be
There you
great.
go, 1, 2, 3, go.
All right, are we ready? All right. Expenditures dated September 11th, 2019. Building and equipment reserve, we had $8,639.59. General fund, $115,687.96. Revolving fund, $719.45. MOPUR grant, no expenditures. Makery grant, no expenditures. Payroll for August 16th, 2019, $30,993.71. Payroll for August 30th, 2019, $90,374.95.
What'd you do, Sean?
It's okay.
Oh, with that kind
That was
of.
really nice. Yeah, that was really nice.
You can evaluate him later on.
Right. There you go.
Maybe we should take turns.
Okay, and I apologize, I'm going to move back up to visitors' comments. Any from the,
Paul Orszowski, and I would like to thank the school board for having this meeting at the North Campus here at the Career Center. Thank you.
thank you. Any other comments? Anybody else? Okay. And correspondence, you want to talk about that, the donations?
Sure. Later in the agenda, we'll be taking action on this, but I'm pleased to announce that we have several donations. And it says auto and diesel, but there's also one for our construction technology. So on the agenda, you can see that we've had 4 vehicles. Is that correct, Hayden? Or did that 4th one actually become?
Yeah.
So it could be a future donation.
Yeah.
Or something. So on here, we have a 2006 Toyota Sienna minivan, 2007 Pontiac Torrent, 2008 Subaru Impreza, a 1999 Toyota RAV4, and a Kubota tractor, as well as $3,000 donation for power tools for the construction technology program. And we'll talk about that later.
You don't need any action on that,
We do.
accepting those?
We-
You want
we
to
have
do
to-
that later, though?
We'll do that later.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Those are the ones that we'll be referencing down in the action section on the donations.
So next, we have a presentation from the auto and diesel program, and looking forward to it.
Great.
Go ahead.
We're gonna use these screens, so if this group can turn around a little bit. Okay.
All right. So, go ahead.
Yeah, quick introductions of the instructors and the student that has donated his time to come share his experiences here. So myself, I'm Hayden Thompson. I am the instructor in the morning, one of the two. Paul is here, Paul Orszowski is here all day. So I'm the halftime morning instructor. I've been here this is my 7th year here.
Hello, I'm Paul Orszowski. I'm the all-day instructor. This is my 2nd year teaching. And my background is I graduated from Cheney Tech in Manchester, Connecticut in the automotive program back in 1999. I worked for General Motors right after that for 20 years. I became a world-class technician. So there's only 7 in Vermont. So I became that, and I decided I wanted to become a teacher. And I applied here, and I was accepted here. So it's my 2nd year, and I'm proud to be an automotive instructor and passing on my knowledge to future generations of automotive techs.
All right, I'm Michael Davis. I am a Virginia Union High School senior. This is actually my 3rd year at the auto program. I got in a semester early through a pilot 101 program. So I have completed 101, 103, 104, and I'm doing 201 now, and next semester I'll be doing 102 eventually. So it's a little weird.
I'm Gretchen Cotel. I'm the diesel instructor here. This is going into my 5th year here at the Hannaford Career Center. I started off as the farm manager and a teaching assistant to Phil Tier, who is a diesel instructor here for 44 years. So I've filled some really big shoes. Been proud to do it. And Paul and I actually both co-taught Mike last year with electrical. Well, was it last year? Well, this past spring anyway. Yep, in electrical.
All right, so I guess I'm up first. So last year I had an opportunity to bring my my personal project to automotive to work on it here. So about 1 day a week I was able to work on it. It's a 1957 Chevy pickup truck 3200 I purchased about 3 years ago. And so we were learning brakes, different brakes in the class. So that's what I mostly did in class with mine. So I replaced all the brake lines. I took out the differential. I cleaned it, see if it needed repair, needed a new one. I put shocks on it. And I did a bunch of other odds and ends things to it. Then, so co-op, through the Career Center, we went to Middlebury State Airport to look at the J&M Aviation, owned by Mike Vincent, and we walked around. He showed us what they do, and from going there and visiting, I got very interested in airplanes in general. So I wanted to pursue that as my co-op through Career Center, and so we managed to get it to happen. And so last year, Thursdays and Fridays, I went and co-opted at Millbury State Airport, and I actually worked there this summer, and I want to pursue that as my job field in the future. And so actually the day I started my co-op, we started on this plane here. This was a crash landing. And so when you land the plane, you want to land on the back landing gears and then land on the front. This person landed on the front first. So basically from the front firewall forward, it's all been replaced. And we also put a pilot side wing on. So I got to see that through the end, and it was an amazing experience. So.
Yeah, so I'll just add a little bit to Mike's experience. Because we've semesterized, so he has this funky schedule where he's been here for 3 years. But the beauty of Mike being someone that goes out there and wants to get his hands dirty, and having Len Schmidt as our co-op coordinator, we were able to put that desire together to set up this opportunity. And 201, which is in this semester, he's doing, it's more of an independent study, so he'll spend some days out at the airport, he'll spend some days here working on his Vermont State Inspection License and ASC certifications. So that's kind of where Mike is at this semester. And then next semester he'll go back into kind of the mainstream classes, the one he missed because he started early.
All right, next up. So new, starting last year, we became an official Vermont State Inspection station. So what happened was that the DMV came down and they watched me and Hayden do a Vermont State inspection, and they approved us for doing the inspection, and we became an official station. So what that means is that we get one of these lovely tablets, because there's no longer paper, it's all on the tablet. And the good thing about having this tablet is that you can put it in training mode. So it means that the students can use this, do a Vermont State inspection, but it's not a, you don't put a sticker on it. So the students get the realistic approach of doing a Vermont State inspection. And then for all the students that are interested in getting their licenses, what we do is we contact DMV, and they will send one inspector down per student that wants to get their license, and they will come here and they will actually go through the test with the student. And if the student passes, they will get their license when they turn 18 years old. And that is a very important license in the state of Vermont. All automotive field or automotive shops really want to have that license. So it's a great opportunity for the students to have a license. So, and that was brand new last year. So we're very proud to have that. So, and then next.
So in addition to adding the Vermont State Inspection credential to the auto program, last year I think the board approved the purchase of an air conditioning machine, and we have also teamed up with Max to get the students their 609 AC certification. And that was a request from our advisory board in order to purchase the larger quantities of refrigerant. You need this certification. It's a lifetime credential. So we have teamed up with them. Our literacy coach has come in to help us, or help the students work through the information, because it is pretty intense.
Yes, very intense.
And last year, I think we got probably almost 100% of the students their credential.
And automotive and diesel teamed up on that
Correct.
certification last year, so we did that with our seniors, their second semester.
Yep.
Close to me.
Yes, sorry. Obviously.
But you're going to do something different with the certification this year, is that correct? You're not waiting till the second semester, or are you?
No, we'll be doing the second semester.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yes, first semester we do is electrical. That electrical is very important, and that's me and Gretchen co-teach that, because as everyone knows, all these cars have 1 million modules on them, so electrical is very important. And in the future, it's pretty much the whole entire industry, whether it's automotive, diesel, aviation, you name it, everything is electrical now, so. All right. Your
This
turn.
is me. So I have some photos up here of some of my industry partners that we have for diesel. I like to take the students out of the shop from time to time, and so we take some field trips. Up here, I have some students who are interviewing the technicians at Mountain View Equipment. They have been a very important part of my curriculum throughout the past couple of years. Vermont Engine is pictured over here on the left. I take them up there as well every year. That's all about engine overhaul work, preparing your engine, renewing your engine. And this is Vermont Railway here as well, going to look at the diesel locomotives, and Milton Cat here as well. These were actually ferry engines from the ferry boats that travel Lake Champlain. So those are great Cat engines to take a look at. What I have to show you, my second year students complete a portfolio before the end of their senior year. And included in the portfolio is a resume, a work order, pictures of their projects, and any certification credentials that they receive as well too. So I have a couple of them that I can pass around to you. And you can take a look at student projects that they've been working on. Yes, thank you if you don't mind. Thank you. And we're still in the process with the first year students. Actually, they'll be starting working on their resumes on this Friday. And actually, they're going to be working on those with Penelope over here. So she's the portfolio guru right now. But the intention is that every senior who walks away from this program will have something to present to a possible employer that includes their time here, their 2 years here in the diesel shop.
And one other thing I'd like to add is that last year we did something called the Conversation Cafe. And when, who was that with, Glenn? Who did we team up with?
Partnership with Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce, and about 20 or so businesses came to the shop. They made a presentation about their business, and then our students were there as well, and they talked about them, about what they were interested in, and then afterwards they were able to mingle together and talk to one another, and it was very good that all these job opportunities were out there for these students. They were able to see and talk to all these people to give them all these opportunities of what they could do after they graduate high school. So we're going to do it again this year, so I thought it was a great success. And then last but not least, we would like to thank Alan for painting our floor. He painted it over the summer.
That's glorious.
So, right. So, any questions? Yes.
Paul, you guys mentioned that you have the thing for inspecting cars, and I don't know how many other technical centers in the state do automotive, but if there are others, do they also have that, do you know, or?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, there are, I'm not sure of the exact number, but I would say roughly 50% of the tech center programs have added this credential as well.
Do you want to clarify?
We're not
whom we
inspecting, yeah, we're not inspecting for customer vehicles
No, right,
yet.
right.
But we're using this, essentially using it as a training tool
Right.
for the students.
Yeah, I'd like to say, that's a really good idea. You know, I've talked with Hayden before about that, it's nice to have them ready. And you can't get it through 18, but at least, I mean,
Right when they turn 18, they'll
When they
mail it to
turn
them in the
18,
mail.
yeah.
Yeah, it's great, and I already have my inspection license, and so did Hayden, so it was just getting the
especially
shop.
doing the CDAC machine too, because a
Yes.
lot of kids I trained have no idea how to diagnose or even draw down an AC system.
Right,
So I think
correct.
That's really good.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Yes.
It's not a question, I just wanted to give a thank you nod to Gibson. You saw the Michael's presentation when I was caught up in the airport, and there was some sort of moments of uncertainty in the beginning of that because our insurance policy had some exclusions around aircraft, and Gibson working with Vermont School Board's Insurance Trust, we were able to get kind of an addition to our standard co-op contract that clarified that Michael wouldn't be in an operating plane. The language was a little bit fuzzy. It wasn't clear that he was even able to work on the planes at all, but this bit kind of clarified that, and so we were able to get a modified contract that worked for everybody. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Very
everyone.
informative. Excellent.
send over.
Oh, let's talk about that.
We just got another student in the morning, so we're up to 20 in the morning
Okay.
for automotive and 10 in the afternoon for automotive, and diesel is,
We have 10 in the morning in diesel and 9 in the afternoon for diesel.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you very much for those numbers.
I mean,
Train to a point.
yeah. Well, so,
Yeah, I'll talk to you later about it.
So next on the agenda, we have a proposal for the mission and vision development work. We've talked to Sue McCormick. The Community Engagement Committee did a phone call with her. We talked about where we are for the moment. The questions that you had from the retreat were addressed, and we shared those with Sue. And in the interim, which we'll report on later, we've given a presentation at Virginia's high school already, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, about how we did that, but we did share it with Sue. And Sue, if you're ready, or if you want to address questions, or how you let me know how you'd like to handle this.
Well, I think what we had discussed was that the Community Engagement Committee would report on their sense of the assessment for the work, that the proposal that Sue put together, and that we would then open it up to the board. You all have Sue's proposal. This is an adjusted proposal from the one that we examined back in July. And so the two highlights are primarily, it has dropped in cost by nearly $3,000, and the amount of active board work required in the proposal has decreased. So more of the work will be facilitated by Sue with respect to community meetings that we would be having, and that would place less of a burden on board members to do some of that work, because the two concerns that we had expressed at the July meeting were one about the cost, and two about the commitment on the part of the board. So when the Community Engagement Committee met a couple of times, I think 3 times potentially, one we didn't actually have a quorum, but we met 3 times over the summer to look at what to do in terms of moving our work forward. And those you can read in the Community Engagement minutes that are also in your packet. The Community Engagement Committee fully supported Sue's revised proposal. And if Christina or Kim want to comment on that, they can certainly do that. And then we'll just open it up, I think, for questions for Sue, or if you want to make an address, Sue, you're free to do that. Didn't mean to
Christine, you want to add anything?
steal the floor there.
In my input, from not being at the retreat and hearing what the results were from the group that did attend, I suggested to Dana, I said, let's just go set up some times with the sending schools and basically take our show on the road. And it worked, I think, very well at Virginia's. We were very well received. We're going to switch around the format a little bit. Jake got a chance to present his piece. We had an opportunity to obviously meet different board members. There were also community members there. We took some time to talk about the numbers that were projected to come to the Career Center at that time, and ended it with, asking basically 4 words that people thought represented, in their minds what the Career Center was all about. We're going to change that format because they did have a tendency to, after looking at the responses, to quote Jake quite a bit, which was a good thing, but still, maybe it's something we need to just change the format a little bit. But and Jake, obviously your presentation was, I thought, well received. I think they were ready to hire you after that.
Somebody is.
Yeah, sure. But anyway, that's the only thing I would add to what Dana just said. Any questions you have on the proposal that you'd like to direct to Sue? Anything that you, Lorraine?
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused because I guess I thought at the first meeting that these outreach community meetings were going to be like open to the public and try to get a lot of people.
That's right.
Okay, well, then I got confused because then it sounded like it says you're going to hold 8 dialogues with 8 to 12 people in each one, and then it mentioned you were going to talk to student, staff, and community partners regarding their experience with the Hannaford Career Center. So then I thought you were only going to be targeting people who have been involved with Career Center, so, and only 8 to 12 people in each one. So I'm just kind of confused now as to what the process actually is supposed to be.
Well, maybe I'll introduce myself. I was thinking that the subcommittee was going to talk a little bit about what they were looking for and why they felt this work was important. Does anyone from the engagement committee want to just speak to that before I jump in?
Sure. I mean, the long and short of it is we feel pretty strongly that this work will be an investment in our future down the road as a career center. And that, we're going to need some of you to be part of this process. So, and then the 8 to 10 members are people that we would recruit to be part of the committee. And then that committee will be working on completing the outreach that will involve the 5 town, or all the sending school towns. So, yeah.
Okay, well, because it says hold 8 dialogues with 8 to 12 people in each one.
Yeah, that may just be, the committee's going to be holding dialogues. Yeah.
As in the people presenting the dialogue are 8 to 12 people, and then there could be 100 people in the room talking.
Right, exactly.
All right,
Yeah.
gotcha.
We can't anticipate what that number will be.
Right, sure, but yeah.
But because we met 3 or 4 times over the summer and looking at the amount of people sitting around the table, we definitely need some input from the rest of this group. And we understand that people are in other committees and have negotiation commitments and so on. But, I also felt that we needed to kind of move out of our committee and get out into the public first phase, let them know what we were doing, that we were addressing the mission and vision statements and why. And that's where Jake's piece came in, along with any other grants that we may have to, apply for or, show that piece of the work. So looking at these different school districts, we needed their input, and they were very open to doing that. I think also it gave us an opportunity to do some PR. And, again, we have 2 more meetings next week, the week after, with Mount Abe and with Middlebury. And I think just as a first step to understand, for them to understand what we're going and what we're doing, and all those sending schools are all working on community engagement issues. And some are a little ahead, some aren't. Sue's you're working with Mount Abe, you've worked with Regent, you worked with Middlebury on different occasions for different things, but a lot of it is around the community engagement piece. And so I think to have that commitment from us to the sending schools was refreshing for them to hear.
And I think it's important to emphasize that the purpose behind doing this work is to, it's not just to write a statement, but to help the community understand and help us form an identity that we can be behind for the future, because our work here is to support students, and we want to make the Career Center as accessible as possible to all students on an equitable basis, and we also want to reach out and create diversity within our programs, not only because it's the right thing to do, but under the Perkins 5 reauthorization, which we will talk to a little bit more later on in a future meeting, but there is a requirement to be engaged with the community. Now, we had started this work before we knew about the Perkins 5 and their requirements, but the 2 dovetail very nicely in terms of being out in the community and having the community provide you with feedback about what the needs, aspirations, and goals are for them and for their students. So it's a happy confluence of ideas that are all coming together at the same time that will help advance our work. I've heard somebody mention public relations. That's a really great way for us to make sure that our message is out in the community. When we were at the Virgin's board, people asked us questions and said, wow, I didn't realize that you could do X at the Career Center. So part of this is not only to provide equitable access, but also to provide an opportunity for the community at large to understand who we are and have some input about how they can engage with us and how we can provide better services to all of Addison County, since we are the sole
And I think too, especially Virgins, I know in Mount Abe, this will be experienced, there are a lot of new board members that are not familiar with our institution. So it gave them an opportunity to talk about that and ask questions, and Dana presented the numbers that we have coming to the school, and I think that was, pretty amazing. We talked about the progression over the last couple of years, but, and then he spent some time, with the other administrators being there and talking about scheduling, and that always had been a major obstacle, and how that obstacle does not exist anymore, and there were some questions in regard to that. For instance, can ninth graders go there, and so on, and again, it gave us an opportunity to put it out there, and I suspect that the same thing will happen in Middlebury and Mount Abe.
And the purpose behind this was to give people an idea that we're going to be reaching out to their communities, because part of this plan is to hold forums in each of our ascending high schools, Virgins, Mount Abe, and Middlebury. And so I've been having dialogues with our counterparts, the superintendents at that level, giving them a heads up. And so this is just a preliminary way of helping those boards know what we're doing and to bring them into dialogue with us. Because those hopes, dreams, aspirations are not just ours in isolation, they are ours as part of a wider community, which consists of three.
I don't want to sound like a negative Nelly, which I think I sounded like at the last meeting when we discussed this, but one question I have is, and maybe Sue, you can answer this. Personally, I don't see vision and mission as a topic that's going to draw in a lot of people. I'm wondering if you've worked with other schools who have this type of thing, and if they had big responses. And I will comment that it is a lot of work, and also 8 dialogues seems like a lot for this topic. And I was on the red study that Sue helped with at the Hudson Central. It was a ton of work. I was very involved. It was really hard to get people to come. We had a decent amount of people participating, but I mean, that was a very controversial topic.
Sure.
I guess if you wanted to hold one in each school district, maybe, but I have a hard time believing we're going to be able to get a lot of people to participate in this, and that it's really going to be worth the time and energy to put too much time and energy into. That's just my...
Appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that comment.
So, maybe I'll introduce myself and then respond to some of your thoughts about what we were talking about doing, some of your concerns, Lorraine. So I've been, my name is Sue McCormick. I have my own business in Vermont called Creative Discourse. I'm also a senior associate with a national organization called Everyday Democracy. And through the last several decades, I've worked around the country and regionally and here in Vermont, helping municipalities and school districts bring diverse people together to talk about all kinds of issues facing their communities, including visioning, downtown revitalization, addressing racism and race relations in diverse communities, and school change issues. And one of the things, and in the past 3 years, I've worked extensively around the school districts who are responding to things in Vermont, like Act 77, and similar legislation around the region, which is really encouraging people to have more personalized learning opportunities for students, to develop more robust partnerships, which I know that the career centers are ahead of the curve on that. And when we first started this work, my colleagues and I really didn't understand as well as I do now that building school districts' capacity for meaningful, authentic engagement with diverse stakeholders is actually essential to moving in that direction of true personalized learning. So if you want to have personal learning plans or student-led conferences or all of those things, if you want those to happen in a real and meaningful way, you have to develop the capacity of everyone in the system to have real conversations with people and find out what really matters to people. So that's been a lot of the work that I've done. Also, there's a huge equity theme in all of the work that I do. When you help develop capacity, what you're really doing is you're helping formal leaders share power with other people in the system. And you're also helping make sure that decisions that the leaders are making are informed by voices of people that the decisions impact, right? And so I'm sure that you could sit around this table and come up with a vision and a mission statement, pretty easy. The purpose of investing in something like this is to give a wider range of people an opportunity to share with you kind of their hopes, their concerns, and make sure that whatever vision you come up with is really reflective of what the people who are impacted by the system, especially students, but also your partners, your staff, families, that they've all had some kind of a voice in shaping that vision. So that's kind of, my work is really about helping communities figure out how to do those things. So my first proposal that I shared with the engagement committee was very heavy on capacity building. And in order to build local capacity to do this work well, it does take a lot of work. And I heard that it just wasn't realistic with what all of you have on your plate as board members to do as deep of a dive as that original proposal suggested. And even that, Lorraine, it's a whole different animal than what we did in the RED study. We did 4-session dialogues in each community. We covered a lot of ground. This is a very different kind of process. We're talking about bringing people together one time for a couple hours to really share their thoughts. So it's a much different ask than we were asking in the situation. So when I went back to the drawing board a little to try to create something that would be a little more doable for the board, and so for example, instead of training students to facilitate these conversations in this new proposal, I would actually come in and facilitate all of the conversations. So a lot less work. You don't have to recruit the students, provide the space for the training. It's less capacity. The trade-off is it's less capacity building, right? So when I leave you, you're not going to have a bunch of community members that have been trained to facilitate conversations. The other thing I want to say about why it's good to invest in this kind of conversation about the vision is when people have this experience talking about something kind of fun and hopeful, future-oriented, it just helps prepare your community for some of the harder discussions that you might need to have about difficult strategic choices facing the Career Center or equity issues. So I think that's also a reason to invest in this. And then finally, and here is where there's work needed, the design of this does call for intentionally very diverse groups. And so I know that you have 11 programs. I was really glad to hear about one of your programs tonight. My hunch is that the people working in those programs probably don't have much opportunity to talk to people in the other programs. And so one of the things that works really well when we create these kind of dialogue opportunities is when you bring people together that don't often have a chance to talk together. So if you have a conversation that includes some students, some people from the different programs, some family members, community partners, that often creates a lot of energy. It gives people a much fuller picture of what you are all about, and it can help generate some really interesting ideas about the future. I will say that I was thinking of small groups, so I wasn't thinking of hundreds of people in the room, although if that's something that's important, we can do that. But what I was thinking about, the reason for the number of conversations was, I was thinking, again, this was about capacity. Instead of trying to get huge numbers of people to be involved, I was thinking that if you could get an intentionally very diverse group of about 12 people in each of those locations, that we could look for patterns across all of the conversations and get a good sense of what's important to people as a whole. And so it was about being more strategic and less, let's get 100 people in the room, but let's get a bunch of conversations with mixed groups, as well as a conversation with students, a conversation with community partners, and a conversation with staff. And those affinity groups would help us see if there are any special concerns or ideas that those different groups hold. And then we can compare those to the themes that we notice across the more diverse groups. So this is more of it's very strategic and targeted rather than being really large. it wouldn't be much more work to have a big forum with a lot of people, so I could still facilitate that. The design would be a little different. But like you said, I don't know how much luck you'd have getting 100 people to show up to have that conversation. So that's why this proposal was much more targeted. So it's going for quality representation rather than quantity of people. And I think the trade-off there is that what it does require from the board is very intentional communication with the broader community so that they know this is happening. And so the design is to bring together a diverse group of people to kind of help make sure that the conversation questions, the survey questions that we're planning are really relevant. And then to also identify people who could possibly be participants and make some invitations. And then I would do the work of facilitating those dialogues, theming all of the data, and then I would share it back with that group, and then that group would work with me to make some suggestions around the vision and mission and bring that to the board. So that's basically the arc of the work. And we're thinking that would happen over this school year.
I have a question. So you're saying we should make this investment in doing this. What's your opinion on how long a mission and vision statement is good for? You're drawing up a new one, it's not good forever. You have to keep constantly moving and changing, and those ends change like everything else.
I mean, I think, it depends on so many things, but, in my experience, 5 or 10 years, but 5 years is probably more realistic.
Yeah.
When you talk about a diverse group of people, could you give me some examples of what you're thinking?
I was thinking of a group, so if we did a discussion group with about 12 people, that there would be, at least 3 or 4 students, some staff that are involved with different programs at the Career Center, a couple of partners, and maybe a parent or 2, and a board member or 2.
And so the idea was that these folks would be handpicked as opposed to just random folks showing up?
So, yes, I think that, and that's a decision that the planning committee would make, but there's a lot of different ways you can go. You could put out an open invitation and ask people to RSVP, but usually for these kinds of things, and Lorraine, you probably remember this from the work we did together, because this isn't a super controversial thing, people probably won't show up without a personal invitation, either a phone call or an in-person ask or an email, a personal email. So you may decide that you do want to make this open to anybody, but that you're also going to make strategic invitations to make sure. You don't want to have a session, if we're going for a diverse group, where 10 community members show up and you don't have any students in the room, so it can be a combination of those two.
So the focus would be on making sure that you have a certain representation, and if others come, then that's all the better.
Exactly. Right. And I think we could we could do, if we're going for, you don't really want less than 8 people,
right.
And you probably don't want more than, say, 25 people, but we could manage more. If we knew ahead of time that there was a lot of interest, of course, we can manage that.
Sure.
But the representation, I think, is the most important piece to focus on.
Any other questions?
I think one of the obstacles to the learning experiences that our students can have is the fact that we're dealing with 4 separate school districts. And how will that be addressed in this outline?
So when I first conceived of this, I was conceptualizing that a lot of these conversations would happen, around here in this building or the other campus, as a way to bring diverse students together easily. And then I heard from the committee that they had an interest in going out to the schools, and there's some value in that. So I think that if you want to give kids across the district a chance to talk together, we may want to do some of the conversations here. I think that detail is something that we want to talk about with the planning committee. And that's why this design, so one of the things about the way I work is I don't come in with a canned thing and just implement it. And so for me, a really important first step, and the reason we have a planning team, is so that we can really talk through some of those questions and figure out what is strategically the most, makes the most sense in terms of how we want to organize this and how we want to deploy these different conversations.
And Sue mentions that under suggested activities number 1, that she's looking to put together, or looking for us to put together, a vision engagement planning team of 8 to 12. And those folks would be the guides or the decision makers moving forward, and keeping in touch with both Sue, the board, me, and the ongoing work. So there'd be a core group that would be committing to periodic meetings and correspondence with Sue, to make sure that there are constant updates and the board remains informed of what's happening.
Any other questions from anybody? Sue, anything you need answered at this point, other than obviously our commitment to your proposal?
Right, well, I think it really is about your commitment to the process, and being able to assemble. One of the reasons for assembling a diverse planning team is that if you're trying to invite diverse people, you want people on that team that are credible with students or different groups. And so I guess my question to you is, and we conceptualize that team would meet 4 times over a year, plus have some other work to do between the meetings in terms of extending invitations and that kind of thing. And so I guess my question is whether that seems realistic to this board to put together a group like that can meet at least 4 times and do some work in between. And if that works, then I feel really excited about what we can do together. But that's going to be an essential piece.
I mean, we could also include members for this team in all the sending schools. We could reach out to all the sending schools for ideas.
Who also have community engagement committees.
Yeah.
And, Christine's on the Virgins one. I've been recruited to do Mount Abe as a town representative. And I think the only time we ever visit these sending schools is usually during a budget time. So that was the conversation we had this summer of, how can we do this in a totally different piece? We can add a piece to that engagement time with the budget. That gives us a little window to do that. Also looking at scheduling time with these other schools. And that was one reason why we started so early, because obviously they're all dealing with some other bigger issues. But at the same time, it gave us an opportunity to say, look, we are too. Maybe for a different angle at this point, and, Jake got an opportunity to talk about a different program that we're going to try and institute and so on. And I think it just gave us an opportunity to say, you know what, let's take advantage of this opportunity and go for it, when we're not necessarily struggling with numbers right now, or as others may be. So I think, and it gets our programs out of our building to the sending schools. And you're right, we may curtail this piece, for instance, this evening was a very nice piece for them to do. And it not only educates us, but it lets you guys talk about some great things that you do. Anything you want to add?
I guess I can just talk about a couple of outcomes that can happen from giving people a chance to participate in these kinds of conversations. And I'm reluctant to compare to some other communities that have done very intensive vision engagement processes that have, are more than what we're talking about here. But I can tell you that in my experience, first of all, having meaningful conversations about the future of an institution that people care about is a really wonderful opportunity that people often don't have, and even boards don't, because they're talking so much about insurance and all these technical hard things that you guys talk about. And so creating that space is very energizing for people, and it creates new student leaders, people who haven't necessarily had a voice about things. It creates a space where students and staff and board members are on an equal footing. It's a democratic conversation, and it can really generate a lot of energy and goodwill. And so there's a lot of kind of side benefits that can happen from doing something like this. And again, we're talking about doing this on a targeted scale, so it wouldn't have the same impact as it would if you did have hundreds of people. But a lot of times there's a lot of kind of spin-off outcomes that can start to happen. For example, people in different programs that haven't met each other, they talk for a few hours about their vision for the future, might make a connection and see how they can help each other with their programs, or there's some opportunity for collaboration. So there's also other positive things that can happen from investing in this kind of process to do a vision instead of just creating a board level.
Thank you. I'm going to ask for motion regarding Sue's proposal. Go ahead.
I just was going to ask,
Sure.
do we have funds for this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Entertaining a motion regarding accepting this proposal as? Thank you. A second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Nay.
Okay, thank you.
You're going to need to show of hands, I think.
Yes, I think that would be helpful. All those in favor, please show your hands. Okay, thank you. Opposed? Okay, and the motion passes. Thank you. And I think I can speak for myself in regards to the community engagement. I think we feel really strongly about committing to something. I think it will evolve, and Suzanne's not here to add to that. But as for additional work from other people, we'll trudge on. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sue.
Okay, next we have, we need some action regarding donations, and the first one is the adult ed grant for $40,000 from, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. Reported in your February packet that we have been approved by the Adult Career and Tech Ed Association for a grant for $42,628 for welding simulators and a trailer to house them in that would be the property of the Career Center, but would be available on a sign-out basis to other tech centers around the state, so that there would be potentially 6 weeks a year that each center could have access to the two welding simulators. That then went to the Department of Labor for final approval. It happened sometime in May, and then went out for RFPs over the summer. And so at this point, I think what we're looking for action on is because there's an equipment purchase in the amount of $38,500, which is on the back page of your Lincoln Electric proposal. That was the winning bid that we received 2 responses from a total of 4 vendors. We will be able to submit a cash advance to the Department of Labor for the full amount and then purchase it afterwards. So we would just have, I believe it's 45 days from when we get the advance from Department of Labor to reconcile the books with the purchase of the equipment. And then it would be housed at the Career Center. We would have a sign-out sheet that would be managed among the different tech centers around the state, and hopefully any time that it wasn't being used somewhere else, it would live here. The original grant proposal had 4 main target purposes for the simulators. One is for outreach and recruiting. I would hope to have us sign it out early for our open house weeks, so that it would be available for those. For placement and skill gains, the simulators are a lot more objective than an instructor at recognizing when a person has made gains, so it would be used in conjunction with our adult ed courses, particularly our courses that are sponsored by individual employers, that we could demonstrate that growth of participants. Course enhancement, it's a really inexpensive and safe way to make additional practice time available. So if we were running an adult ed or even potentially a high school welding class, we could have computer lab time that could be monitored by somebody who doesn't know how to weld and doesn't have to worry about safety compliance, and they could just practice extra hours. And then the last target in the grant proposal was for collaboration with Vermont Department of Corrections. Some of the tech centers are situated where there are correctional facilities, and it would give those centers an opportunity to deliver technical instruction inside the facilities pretty easily.
Any questions?
Oh yeah, so Paul Chelsea again. So I went to
Go ahead.
Skills USA Nationals in Kentucky, St. Louis, Louisville, Kentucky, because my auto student won the state here. And Lincoln Electric was there, and they had these there, and it was unbelievable on how it was used. Like they were doing it, and you could see it on the live screen. He was able to show like the different wells and everything. I mean, this was just like unbelievable. So I just say that this is a really good investment. I just like couldn't believe like how nice these tools were. So, and it was just unbelievable. That's all I have to say. I was like, this is crazy. So he's right though. It's like you can use it. You're not wasting any product. Anybody can do it. I mean, people are just lining up and doing it. So I thought it was really, really nice. So
Thank you for that. Do we need two motions or one?
Oh, yeah, we should probably have two motions.
We have two motions. So the first motion I need is accepting the adult education grant for, you said 42,600, 42,600
28.
And 28.
and 28.
And just to clarify the discrepancy between the simulator and the grant total is for the trailer to move it.
Okay, thank you.
around the state.
So moved on the accepting the grant.
And second from Mike. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? No, that's unanimous.
Yep.
All right, the second motion will be to accept the bid proposal from, we name who they are?
Lincoln Logic.
Yep. Okay, Lincoln Logic for
That would be the larger amount.
38.5, and that includes the trailer,
No, that's with
the unit?
packaging.
Okay.
that would live in.
Transportation as well. Okay,
So moved.
Second.
thank you.
That's Mark
Sean.
and Sean.
Okay,
Any questions? All in favor?
any more questions? All those in favor? Aye, thank you. Opposed? None. Okay, good. Thank you. We're gonna move this along here. So looking at policy 2.4, financial planning and budgeting, the birth budget and spreadsheet monitoring report.
We also have that, yep.
It's in your packet.
In your packet.
Any questions? And who will, you want to
I
address
can
that?
speak to it very briefly.
Thank you.
This is a regular executive limitations policy that we report on a couple of times a year. There is nothing out of the ordinary. The reporting period is through September. We talk about how deposits are recorded and classified according to accounts. Cash receipts are primarily received by either in the revolving fund or student activities, and these are counted by two people to ensure internal controls are exercised. Capital expenditures are not only tracked by the district's chart of accounts, but also by separate checking accounts in various banking institutions. And the expenses for all district funds are done by purchase order requisition, which requires a pre-approval process. And cash flow is monitored on a regular basis. And question number 3, the current fiscal year provides the same or additional funding for board prerogatives as identified by policy governance.
Any questions? So we need a motion for that? To accept that?
Policy 2.4.
2.4, financial planning and budgeting policy monitoring.
I'll
Rick,
move that we accept 2.4.
Mike, and none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? No? Thank you. And next, we have a staff hiring.
Well, we have the BRF, just,
All right.
there is each year we ask for the board we present what the current level of funding is for the BRF.
It was in your
And
packet.
authorize, it was in the packet, and authorize the finance committee to make expenditures up to that amount that is currently in the BRF. So you have a fund balance of $65,813. That was reconciled by Gibson very recently. And that actually is a lower amount than what will actually be there because we have some monies that are going out that are prepaying in anticipation of reimbursements from the state for the security grant that we were awarded last year. That's for 20-some thousand. So, but in order to pay for some of the work that is being done, we need a source of funding, so that is, but the recommendation is to come out of the BRF. And so we're asking, it will be reimbursed, we're asking that the board approve up to $65,813 to be expended by the facilities committee for work projects.
Are we specific on those work projects?
No, at this point in time, I'm going to make a qualified statement. Previously, there were no work projects that we had identified. There will be one, but we'll talk about that separately, under the RFP, which we need action for, and Sean will speak to that with respect to the, to a reserve for the RFP that you charged the facilities committee with developing. So at this point in time, it's to authorize the facilities committee to expend up to $65,813 on projects that would be needed during the course of this year.
$65,813.
That's correct.
And we're authorizing the facilities committee to spend that out of the BRF budget
Right.
fund. Have a motion on that, please?
So moved.
Missy, second, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. All righty, next we have a staff hiring for
Visual communications.
Viscom. Dana will talk about that.
So in your packet, you should have, excuse me, you should have a resume for Joe Shine. Joe Shine actually served as an intern with us last year, a student intern, student teaching under Lisa Rader in the fall semester, and then returned in the spring as an artist in residence, did a little bit of extra work for us. Given our expanded numbers within certain areas of our technical programming, it was advised that we look at, I made the recommendation that we look at providing some relief and additional capacity potentially for our program that focuses on visual communications and design and illustration. So I am making a recommendation that we hire Joe Shine at a .32, approximately 1/3 time, to be able to teach a single section of visual communications, which meets every other day. And you have his experience on the resume. He is well respected in the community. His references were outstanding, and his work ethic and his contributions to the Career Center to date, first as a student teacher and then as an artist in residence, have been exemplary.
Could you tell us who the hiring committee was?
The hiring committee was me. I was a single member. It happened during the summertime, and it was difficult coordinating with getting other people to participate. So I did it on my own.
Any licensing qualification?
Joe is currently, as it says on his resume, that his license is pending with the state of Vermont. Just to let you know, in terms of the number of applicants, he was the sole qualified applicant, so it was a fairly easy decision to make.
Any other questions?
I guess I'm not clear on, is this an additional FTE, or is it?
It's an additional, it would be an FTE, it would be an add of .32 from what we had last year, yes,
And how is that being funded?
within the budget.
What kind of numbers do they have in that?
The visual communications and design and illustration have the largest number of FTEs in the center.
And where would they be located? Because if assuming the VisCom program is fully...
They're sharing space, and they're able to use it as a result of the scheduling.
So there won't be any
There won't be-
overlap
no, there won't be.
in classes?
Nope, we've got that worked out.
How many students are enrolled in?
That section has 19,
19.
yes.
Any other questions? Lorraine?
I'm looking for a motion.
Yes,
I would make that.
thank you.
I'll second.
So Lorraine's making that motion to hire
Joe Shine.
Joe Shen in a,
Section.
you want a 3.2 or you want a 1.3 time? 3.2?
3.2, yep, at .32.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No, thank you. So next, the internet agreement, which traditionally has been a 3-year agreement, so that's why it's coming to us versus it not. Not sure if you've got one in your packet, if you want to look at it. There's an increase from, last contract was $569.60 per month. We have upgraded the current internet provider to, obviously, the number of people using it, especially when students in class and so on, has increased. So the 3-year term is for $660 per month.
Yep.
And it would be for, again, 3 years.
Can I just add that we increased the bandwidth by about 3 times?
Could you do me a favor, just
I'm
introduce
sorry.
yourself?
Dan Callahan,
Thank you.
team manager here at
Thank you.
So we went from a 30 megabit per second connection, and this contract is for 100.
Big difference.
And that's why the jump in cost.
So the cost was proportionately, significantly less than what it would have been. It's less than $100 for the increased bandwidth, which I think I reported in the email that I had sent out earlier.
And we're currently saturating that 30 meg pipe.
I'm sure.
So
Any questions for Dan? Seeing none, I entertain a motion to accept that.
To accept the 3-year
I'll make a
Agreement.
motion to
Thank you.
accept the
And Nick, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Opposed? None. Okay, thank you. So next, facilities report for the energy contract, RFP.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Sean, you want to do it? Thank
So,
you.
as you guys directed the last time, we have put together an RFQP, I believe is officially what it is, but in order to do the energy audit and then the associated repairs, assuming the audit comes through with the numbers that we wanted to do, that ramps us up towards eventually going to the voters and getting a bond and making it all happen. The process moving from here will be to send this out as soon as Friday, correct, guys? Yep. Worth noting, the difference here is that this is not a request for proposal based on the overall knowledge of what this cost will be. So this would be an energy audit and a sort of a survey of qualifications of the various contractors that perform that duty. Those, once we get all that in place, before the energy audit happens, we will select a contractor based on that criteria, which is outlined in our proposal request. And then we would move forward with reward, and then they would do the audit, discover what the costs associated with that, those things are. That will generate the bond request, and we'll move from there. As Dana pointed out earlier today, the timeline on receiving the bond is such that the schedule had to be amended sort of last minute in this morning, in so much that, remind me, Dana, it's March 2nd? Third.
Is, right, Tom.
Was when we would try to put this before the voters, and then, assuming that it gets voted in, we would not actually be awarded the bond through the bank, the bond bank, until August 1st, which makes it very hard to actually do all of this
The
work.
work would be performed the following year.
We discussed this today in committee and thought that certainly, assuming that the contractor is game to operate in this fashion, there's certainly no downside to allowing them to bite off a chunk of the work in that short window between August 1st and, what did we set here? August 15th. Nope, sorry, August 21st.
21st,
Yeah. There's no downside, they may opt against it. It seems like, sure, if it's all the same price, why not let them do that? And then if there's non-disruptive activities that can go on during the school year, we'd allow them to continue to do that. And then finally, they could ramp up again as a phase 2, or if they opted not to do any of the work in that first phase. Everything on non-disruptive April 6th and June 22nd, built to 2020 to be completed in time for the school year, restarting a year from that. Or that I have to post that summer. That's pretty much the nutshell there. The one thing, do you want me to discuss the potential for the contingency fund?
Well, there are two, we'll probably have two asks, so we might want to do it in two different motions, but, so the one would be, if the board is willing to accept this proposal for us to then put out to, for request for qualifications on Friday, that should probably be the first step, and then we'll go back to the second, which has implications for the BRF, which I kind of referenced earlier.
Great. So I guess I'm looking for a motion on that?
Yeah, to accept the RFP to be submitted.
I'm not looking for it, but somebody needs to. Yeah.
Somebody needs to.
I'll make a motion to
Thank you.
accept.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Thank you.
And then, so, as noted by Dana this morning, there is an addendum in this contract, as we understand it, that allows, so in this circumstance, for example, that we award this contract to the auditing party, then we take it before the board, or to take it before the voters, and they did not approve it, and the audit has already transpired, then we will be on the hook for the cost of that audit. If that is not the case, and it moves forward, then we will, that audit cost will be rolled into the overall proposal. In order to cover against that contingency, we recommend that we put some money aside in the BRF. I think we decided on $8,000. For the, frankly, fairly narrow potential that that might actually happen. It is, for a moment there, we thought it might be that we were on the hook for all the parties to have to do their audit and then pay them, but it turns out it's a little harder. It's just one. Whoever we award it to, we might need to be paid for services rendered, regardless of whether they do the work.
Lorraine?
So did this vote just commit us to taking this to the voters as bonds?
Commits us to issuing the request for proposal, quote proposal to contractors.
Okay, but we could decide after we have
Sure.
this audit that we don't want to take this before the voters.
If you look at the sheet that I just handed out, there is a timeline, and all of that is clearly delineated. Mark, John, if you want to go back through that, I'm trying to find my page. Thanks.
Yeah, so let's see, it's board approval and signatures to execute contract 12/11/19, is that the one you're looking at? No.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if we decide not to do that, you're saying if we went ahead, that we would roll the costs of all of this into the bond? But if we don't, then
So the process here is that they will have to do the audit in order to come up with the actual
Right.
cost. If for some reason we didn't actually execute any of that work, they will have done, in good faith, the audit. And we would only pay that amount, and that's what would come out of our.
Well, when are we on the hook for that? Is that December?
We get the presentation on the audit on February 7th. So I guess that would be when it would be.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, we did take the entire document and submitted it to Visbit.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Submitted it to Visbit for review by legal counsel, and they came back and said that it was a very well-crafted document. We did use two previous districts' wording that have had successful ventures in doing capital improvements, particularly energy efficiencies. And so you have that being not just reviewed by this committee and outside entities, but also Visbit looking at it for our best interest.
Is the RFP in our packet?
It is,
Yes.
yeah.
So I guess my question is, there is enough time between the audit final report of February 7th and the public vote on March 3rd? That seems rather small window from my experience for bond votes.
you've got to get it on the ballot. I mean, board, when we have our votes to the
I see,
public
so
for
you
our
need-
budget, we've got to have them in
Like
in
in January.
don't we?
So we can bump that back a week. We thought that we had all of the dates worked out.
Well, you could be right, but that does seem
Right.
like it's.
I mean, if I would just I'd just really double
Yeah,
check
I can't
that.
speak to that at all,
Yeah.
yeah.
We can look at whatever 12/7 is, and if that needs to back up a week or a week and a half, we can certainly.
I would definitely check into that, and then also, we approve them to go ahead and do the audit in the first place, and do they have enough time to get the audit done from tonight to then?
Well, we haven't approved anyone to do the audit yet, so it wouldn't be until we award the contract to
Whoever gets it,
So that's-
will they have enough time? See what I'm saying? If they think they've got till February 7th for presentation, and it turns out to be February 1st,
Right.
that could really alter somebody's request for proposal.
So, and this is an area I'm not familiar in, but is it possible to put something on the ballot, as in we will be reviewing this thing, because it doesn't have the data associated already?
No, you have to put a dollar amount on
You
it.
have to put the dollar amount on it, okay, on the ballot, yeah.
That's
Of course you
correct.
do.
45 days, isn't it?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think
So-
it's like.
Generally speaking, when we do our, it would go in with the regular articles that we put in, and that's sometime in mid-January that we have to have
Excuse me,
those.
excuse me.
It's
Okay, so
basically,
then,
that's it.
Gentlemen?
so you're rolling now. Okay, so you
Gentlemen?
have to do the audit first.
Dana's trying to make a point here. Go ahead.
So that we have to get it to the printers so they can be placed in the annual report. That annual report usually goes out the end of January. I'm not exactly sure what the date has to be, but if it's 45 days and back, you have 28 days in, actually 29 next year. 29 days in February plus 3 days, which is 32. We would need about 2 weeks before the end of January in order to be able. Right, so around the 17th.
Any questions about that? And I'm sure you'll check, be absolutely sure. Dana?
I will definitely check it to make sure.
So if this has to be altered,
Well, it probably would have to be altered if we're saying that there's, now, audit final report and presentation. Actually, 2/7 is not a board meeting, so I don't know why that date is there, because that's not a board meeting. In which case, it would have to be the January board meeting if that's what that is doing. So that would be 1/15, I believe. It's the third Wednesday in January, and that's an exceptional date. It's on the calendar, it's already been publicized, because the first is a Wednesday, and that gives us extra time to be able to get things done for the board meeting and make sure that all articles that require board approval are ready for presentation at that board meeting.
Any other questions? Let me just say thank you very much for the amount of work you put in this summer. I got reported on it. Suzanne and I did regularly, and tremendous amount of work. Thank you.
We need your motion for the admin space, the 8,000.
We're going to separate that.
Yeah, we already approved,
Larger amount.
this with the change, and I will make sure that gets handed. But there needs to be a motion. Was there a motion for 8,000?
No.
So we need a motion.
Second? Thank you, Miss.
Motion to allocate 8,000 from the borough
Okay.
as a contingency.
Okay, the two people, are you okay with that? Okay. That, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay,
Okay, you need anything else in action? Are we covered finally?
I think we've covered everything under actions.
No.
Oh, wait. Did we do the donations?
No.
We did not do the
No.
donations.
We need the
We need to do the
donations.
donations. So I would entertain a motion to accept donations,
Which are listed above,
which are listed above.
and the correspondence.
Right. And the donors, if you need to know who they are, we have Bruce Malotra, Pamela Birnbaum, the North Branch School, Teresa McDonough, and Jennifer Murdoch for the vehicles and the Kubota tractor. And we have Silver Maple Construction for the $3,000 donation for power tools.
Entertain a motion to accept those.
So moved.
Mark and Lorraine. All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're done with those. So next on the agenda is a community engagement report, which pretty much kind of gave earlier. Details, obviously, we're going to have a different format change. We're going to see, let me see here. We have our meeting with MUMS is Monday. 9:23, thank you. And then 9:24 the next night is with Mount Abe.
And that was confirmed for 6:05.
Okay, so we just were waiting at a time. Our format will change a little bit. We still have to talk to how we're going to do that. Pretty much the same group. I think we were well received at Virgins. That was the feedback Dana got afterwards. And you want to talk about that a little bit? Yourself, or?
Sure, I could certainly say that members of the board, as well as the superintendent and principal, expressed a deep appreciation for the work that we've done at the Career Center. They complimented us on our work, and they expressed their support of what we would be doing in terms of reaching out to their communities with respect to the work that we were talking about with respect to Sue McCormick. So all around, it was a very, very positive reception by the Virginia Union, or the Addison Northwest Supervisor School District.
We had a recent board meeting, and several of the board members, spoke to me about how wonderful the presentation was. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I was not there.
Right. Any questions? You're welcome to come, though it's listed on the bottom. Sometimes we have a big group and sometimes we don't, but that's okay. Suzanne also attends those meetings regularly also. Anyway, next, superintendent's report.
Yes, my superintendent's report was in the packet. So there were a lot of things in there, so I'm not going to take time to rehash what I've put in writing for your review, but I do want to highlight just a couple of things that are important. Our collaboration on safety with MUHS and ACSD is moving along, and I have to say that as partners in working on this. It's been a pleasure working with them. We have a joint meeting coming up between ACSD and MUHS with us, safety team meeting in the next week or so. I'll be coordinating that with Bill Lawson. Preliminary enrollment figures, you can read those for yourself, but I was ecstatic, as was Denise, when she gave me the numbers on the first day of school, which we reported at 150.99, and we had over 450 students. I think the number that we had on the first day of school was like 471, but that may be in flux. But we haven't seen those numbers in about 4 or 5 years. So on 2 cycles, 2 6-semester cycles. First day of school went off without a hitch. It was great. The work that we had done last year with coordinating with schedules with our Sunday school partners helped remarkably. I do want to put in a plug for the Addison County Workforce Alliance, of which we are a partner, and we're going to be working on a reality fair in the spring, and those will be hosted at each one of our Sunday school partners. We will be working again with the Addison County administrators, and that's going forward. And I did meet today with a finalist that we're hoping to hire as the culinary assistant on a very part-time basis, up to 15 hours a week. And we're hoping to work that out in the next week or so. So I'll be happy to let you know who that is at the next meeting.
Questions? Hearing none, we'll move on. So next is the Dean of Students Report, and just on a personal note, Ms. Kelly has served us for 24 years, I found out.
Oh my, you're keeping track.
Already told me. Anyway, but thank you very much for your service to not only the institution, but our students.
Well, thank
most
you.
importantly, but thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Great.
So, as Dana indicated, we had a very smooth opening, and we did our opening assemblies to introduce staff and an overview of some rules up at the Middlebury Union High School auditorium like we've been doing over the last several years. And they also got a chance to meet Penelope, our portfolio guru. In addition to Kate Riviere, will be teaming up and dividing the portfolio effort. And then they also got to meet Ms. Logie and know that they have a second counselor in their toolbox as students, that they can access her at any time. So we also have an open house coming up on October 3rd. This is our open house that's not quite as big and flashy as the one we had in February. This is one geared more towards students bringing their families and friends in to see where they're learning and who their teachers are. So that one actually, looks like there's a typo in time. It's actually 4:30 to 6 and not 6 to 8. So if you can make note of that, we love seeing board members. So if you can make it, we'd love to see you. The other thing is we are working again with Gabe Hamilton. He is the proficiency-based learning coordinator at Addison Northeast, and he has worked with us before in terms of proficiency-based grading and learning with our students. So he's going to be working with us on a professional development during our early release days as well as our in-service days. So we're really excited to be moving ahead again with him because we have a great relationship with Gabe, and as well as Andrew Jones, who comes in from time to time. But Andrew's working down at Mill River, so it's a little different in terms of his schedule. One other thing, I'm just going to put a plug into the fact that we're here at North Campus. Our farm is right here, and together with our farm manager, Devin Karpak, we have 110 guinea fowl, also known as Keats, and those are in the blue coop houses out there. And we also have 3 meat goats, and we have 15 laying pullets. They're this close to being hens, so we're expecting eggs anytime. So, and also a beautiful garden. We've harvested greens, leeks, different things that we've been selling to the Glass Onion so that the students in culinary can take advantage of our fresh produce. So that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Kelly, how often do you meet with Gabe Hamilton?
He's doing a hybrid.
Okay.
So we've got an online portal through Google Classroom. So it's going to be about once a month
Okay.
throughout the
Thank
school
you.
year, depending on whether it's an early release day, we have 7 scheduled, or it's going to be, one of those dedicated full days where he may be down with us for half the day and then give us things to work on for the other half of the day.
Is he working with any other schools that you're aware of?
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, he does his own work for Mount Abe.
Right, I understand that, but sometimes it's
He
collaborative.
did run a course this summer, and some of
That's true.
our instructors
Oh, good.
did participate, but that was not for just us, that was for
Everybody.
countywide.
Yep, that's true.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly,
Yes.
did you say meat goats?
Yes. Boar. They're boar. That's the name of their breed, B-O-E-R. So they are a Dutch breed, and they are very beefy looking. They're adorable. They got long
Well, I was
floppy
gonna
ears
say the
and.
midsummer kids worked with them, and I came out and took some pictures of them, so when you say meat, I mean it's gonna be eaten?
Yes. Sorry. Yes, and they've been named.
Yes, I know,
Yes.
and, Devin was.
Lunch in there?
Right. So yes, they will be. So anything we have here has to be a production animal of some sort. And we haven't gotten to the point yet where we want to venture into any milking animals. That's a huge commitment, so we're kind of dabbling. We're trying to make it, like the course title is, sustainable ag. So we're, putting animals here that we can keep the area healthy and maintain a sustainable impact on the little square footage that we have.
Mark, I'm only here to milk the cows at 5 AM.
Oh, yeah.
So if anyone wants a tour afterwards, I'll be glad to give you a tour.
Any other questions, Kelly?
I'll do 5 AM, you do 5 PM.
It's not gonna happen.
I'm gonna feel kind of.
So unless Lorraine wants to make major cash donation.
I know, right?
Really,
Full house of
save their lives,
Your
whatever.
house, right?
She's thinking.
Yeah, you can tell.
So next report, adult tech ed.
I just want to speak real briefly to our medical offerings we've had running over the summer, both the phlebotomy course that started in May and an LNA course that started in end of June, was it? July, right after the 4th of July, the LNA class started. We had a LNA instructor and administrator debrief earlier this week to kind of take away some of our learning about the LNA course, which was a much more condensed format than we had used before, about 5 days a week, and so it was basically 7 weeks from start to finish instead of our usual evening classes that are twice a week, which extend over 11 or 12 weeks. The feedback from both instructors and participants on that format was very positive, so we hope to do that again, although we're kind of juggling we're up against space constraints and not really being able to run a class 5 days a week during the day, during the school year, but we hope to be able to offer a couple of different LNA offerings over the winter. I also met with our phlebotomy instructors. This is our first ever phlebotomy class that started in May. I mentioned we had 3 or 4 complete, and then 2 of those 3 that passed their certification exam. We got really good feedback from the exam organization in terms of where the students' strengths and weaknesses were, and I found that Jennifer Kennedy, our phlebotomy instructor, to be extremely reflective and proactive about using that information to incorporate into changes that she wants to make in our next cohort, and are very excited to have both our upcoming LNA and phlebotomy classes are fully enrolled.
Any questions? Thank you for that. And any other medical courses that Porter or anybody else is looking?
We have an LNA advisory coming in the 10th of October, and that's certainly one of the things that I'll have on the agenda. In the past, I've been interested in offering an MNA, a medical nurse assistant offering, and that was not well received at Helen Porter, but there have been some leadership changes there, so it's something we'll be exploring.
Yeah, and I think I was approached by a couple of people regarding, I know the licensing to become a mortician has been a difficult task in this state. And if there's room maybe to create a certification, you know, there was some conversation with some people I talked with, along with, the other one was a barber certificate that was a little bit different than a hairdresser certificate. And it's just something to explore. I don't know if Essex provides any of that, but it might be another certification. But just people have approached me and asked, and I said, would share it with you. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Now, I need someone to speak about policy 4.1, a governing style, today. You going to, Mike?
Sure. Great meeting. I'm glad to see everybody here. It's a full house. Thank you all for coming. Fantastic presentation from the auto and diesel. Thank you guys for doing that. And it's great to see everybody here. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Hurry up, yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I'd like to thank Bob Rothman, who's over here, who is one of our substitute teachers, who is just amazing with our students. I'm not quite sure why you're here to see us, but other than
Presentation.